Living between Wednesdays, just trying to get by to the next fix. Living between Wednesdays, prefer the comics over the Netflix. Living between.
One thing I do enjoy is, so your rap style, or the way that you perform or sing, I'm honestly not sure the proper word for it, so do
Yeah, rapping.
Perfect. So your style of rap it feels to me definitely inspired by like the 80s and 90s, or even a little bit like someone like the Beastie Boys, a little bit of Fresh Prince. I feel like, again, I have limited musical knowledge, but from what I get out of it, and you really do let your joy, your passions, and your loves for nerddom, home, everything like that sort of come through. When it comes to music, what is your musical inspiration? Like the artists you listen to, and not necessarily like the big names everyone might know, but like who inspired you?
Well, you named Fresh Prince. Of course, I love Fresh Prince as a kid. I've really been listening to rap since I was a kid, like super young. So I had really early tapes from like, my cousins and like older kids on my street. And like, I would listen to like Public Enemy and LL Cool J, Run DMC, Fresh Prince, like really old school, like 80s stuff, and just get mixtapes and like mix CDs and compilations. And anybody I would meet who had rap, I'd be like, oh, can I like borrow that, or can I like copy that from you? And just absorb as much as I could. And I listened to a lot of college radio. CKDU in Halifax I think I discovered that probably in like grade 6 or 7.
Oh, cool.
And I used to listen to like all the college radio. So I'd listen to the rap shows, the punk shows, the rock, like anything. And it was just cool. And back then you would tape it. So you'd get blank tapes and you just tape these radio shows. And then I had a paper route and I would just listen to these tapes on my paper route. And for years, I was a paper boy for, I think, I figured it out one time. I think it was like 6 or 7 years I had a paper route with my buddy Alex. And we,
nice.
That's how I paid for all my comics and records. Like,
I know the feeling.
Gotta feed the habit,
Uh-huh.
And so early hip hop for sure, but it just I never grew out of it. I love all music. I listen to rock, everything. But, to this day, I'm still like, I guess I've got an addictive mentality for comics and music. So like every week I'm checking like who's got a new album out. Let me check this out. Like I was just listening, like Tyler the Creator had a new album. I was just listening to Homeboy Sandman's got some new stuff. There's a new Aesop Rock album that's really good. The Koreatown Oddity is this rapper out of the Bay Area that I just got into. He's really dope. Or I'll go back and like, to me, the classic stuff is like kind of this pocket of like the 90s. So I'm a big fan of like Nas and Wu-Tang Clan, and later groups like Company Flow. And, I love the Roots a lot. So I could just go on and on. Like I'm just always listening to things. So I guess all those influences funnel into my music. So the beats that I gravitate towards and that I want to rap on tend to, I guess, feel maybe from that era, like maybe like that 90s, like KRS-One. This is a huge, I love listening to KRS-One. And KRS-One coined the phrase boom bap hip hop. And it's like that boom bap. Yeah. And that's kind of like, that's essentially where my heart is. Like if I had to pick one style of hip hop that I love, it would be like that boom bap sound. And hip hop, just like every other musical genre, if you ask someone what's the greatest rock band, they could tell you 20 different rock bands. Yeah. But they're all, you could be like, well, that's, alternative rock, that's soft rock, that's classic rock, that's heavy metal, blah, 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 blah. Same thing with hip hop. You got your old school G-funk, you got nerdcore, you've got the boom bap that I'm talking about. There's like experimental, there's like 1,000 different styles of hip hop as well. And because it's such a young art form still, and people are just like, they get hung up on something. It's like, well, this doesn't sound like trap, or this doesn't sound like Drake, like, is this rap, what is this? And clearly I'm a bit passionate about it, so I could
No, I love it. It's interesting because like when I think of music, like for me, growing up I was a kid who like rock, but I liked it in small doses, right? Like I'm a pretty like, partner disagrees, but I would say I'm a pretty introverted guy. So I like to get one album and I'll listen to the hell out of it, and I'll be all right. I'm finally done with this. Let's get another one. So for me, like my musical tastes are, I think, pretty small, but just what I like, I'm like rabbit hole into. And like one of my favorite movies when it comes to music was, and it probably still is or will always be, has got to be Metal: A Headbanger's Journey, and the sequel to it, because it like scientifically broke down metal, how it came to be, from heavy metal from Ozzy to everything. And it's cool to get to learn about that from you for rap, essentially. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just barely even scratching the surface. But same thing, right? With metal, you can go so many different places. And then you got like your Viking rock, and you got like your math rock, and like what is all, what is all this metal? Like there's like that crazy like European industrial metal stuff, and you just start going on. And I'm lucky too. I have a great group of friends, and growing up, everybody kind of had different musical tastes. So we'd all just, whoever was driving or whoever's house we were hanging out at would like be in charge of like playing music, and we just absorbed everything. So yeah, I really do like everything. Like one of my best friends, Alex, who writes Last Paper with me, like he's an industrial DJ, and he's into new wave and does like all this amazing stuff, and he's always exposing me to bands I've never heard of. He has a great blog called I Die You Die, and if you want to dig deeper into like this incredible like industrial, I'm always asking him, I'm like, well, how do we classify this? Is this industrial? Is it like new wave? What is it? So just cool music. But him and his pal Bruce run it, and they have great musical taste. So, but yeah, I'm into it. But yeah, I guess it bugs me. It's like, and going back to comics too, it bugs me whenever people just think there's one thing. It's like, oh, you are a rapper, but you're not what I think this is. Oh, you like comic books? Well, I don't. What is that, like Superman, or is that Garfield? It's like, actually, I've never read Superman or Garfield. I mean, I have, but you get what I'm saying, right? It's like there's so much out there. So when people have that like just that single-minded view of something, it's like, no, you're not gonna go find, I'm reading Adrian Tomine and I got Star Wars here, and I just like, I don't know. It's, you know what I'm saying.
Life is varied, and it's better when we experience a lot.
Exactly.
Right?
And rap's the same way. So, yeah.
Agreed. Absolutely. One thing I did want to ask you about was your friends. So, and do correct me if I'm wrong. I'm certainly going to say something wrong here, but in Halifax,
you can be my friend. Yes.
Well, thank you.
I want to be your friend, Konrad.
Oh,
I'm already feeling a bond here. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So when you were in Halifax, and I believe you left Halifax in your late teens, early 20s, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I bounced back. I moved back there for a bit, and I've been back and forth. So,
okay,
yeah.
So you've kind of.
But yeah, when I first moved out, yeah.
Okay. I know when you were there, you were a part of a musical group called The Dregs. Is that correct?
Yeah, but that was when we were kids. Like we were like.
That was really long ago.
Yeah, that was like when we were just messing around and didn't know what we were doing. We just liked to rap and make songs, and that was like. I guess we started calling ourselves the Dregs around grade 6 or grade 7, and we just kind of hung out together, and we would like rap and make bad tapes and, collect music and play video games and just hang out and, just what kids do. It was just like the name of our crew, and then we rapped. And that same radio station I was telling you about, CKDU, we used to call in and we'd request rap songs on the radio, on the college radio, and we'd ask them to like shout us out. They're like, all right, this next song's going out to the Dregs, and we'd pick songs. We'd be like, yeah, they're just playing this dope song, and they just like dedicated it to us. And we would do it like regularly, like cool. Like you're just kids. It's like, all right, I guess I'm gonna call the radio station. What do you want to do? Let's hang out. Let's request songs on the radio, and then hang out and see if they play it. And that was like a fun activity to do before the internet.
Hell yeah! I mean, that'd be so cool to have that.
I mean, we didn't have yeah. So that was like just a super fun thing that we would do, and And then weirdly, as I got older, I would meet people who also listen to CKDU, and we had become like mildly notorious because people were like the Dregs, like, because no one knew who we were. Like, it was probably like college kids listening to radio, and they're like, they don't know who the Dregs are, when really it's like a bunch of like 13-year-old kids like, requesting Wu-Tang Clan.
Amazing. So at a very young age, then you had the Dregs. You moved to Toronto, and you start performing here as well. And do forgive me, I forget the name of, but you had a group or an artist name, I guess, for some people that you worked with here in Toronto, correct?
Oh, well, there's Backburner Crew. Like the Backburner Crew is that's like a big collective of a bunch of different hip hop artists, rappers, DJs, producers, painters, like graffiti writers. Yeah, so we're basically this big crew. That, you know, I was working with an artist named Jesse Dangerously, that I knew in Halifax, and Jesse was working with these other artists and introduced me, and essentially was like like-minded people just eventually found each other, and we all still work together, and we have a few group albums together, and it's just they're like my closest friends. They're like a great group of artists, and we just like all are still doing music, but we kind of found each other, I think, because we were maybe like just like maybe the outcasts of the scene, or like we were all interested in doing similar types of rap that was maybe like a little different than what like was like this like being fed on like, I don't know. We were just doing stuff that was a bit different than some of the other things going on. So we kind of found each other and bonded over that. And we all had this mutual love of the same ethics of music creation, and have just been kind of fumbling through creating our own sounds ever since. So, but yeah, all my records, you'll see like a little Backburner logo on the back, and that's the crew. And yeah, there's just tons of great members in there. If you see the Backburner logo on an album, definitely go give it a listen, because it's dope.
Beautiful. And still to this day then, are you working with them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like awesome. Literally today I was working with them. Like,
sweet. Okay.
But yeah, that's like, it's, I start naming people, but there's so many people in the group, but we're all like, it's this artist collective, and yeah, we've now been working together for a million years. So yeah, it's crazy.
Good. Well, I mean,
much like a comic studio, right, or something,
Yeah.
So people kind of working together. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Raid Studio, where it's a bunch of different creators coming together, doing their thing, and feeding off of each other.
Yeah.
So speaking about your work, and you were working today, what's coming next for you? What's on the horizons that you're willing to share?
Well, we got a new issue of The Last Paper Route, so issue 5. So that's still it's a bit further away than I'd like right now, but I've got a new album coming out our plan is to have it out in the spring. That's kind of what I'm looking at, spring 2022. It's called Bergonomic, and nice. It's more of like a mix of songs as opposed to like Space First, which is like sticks to kind of a theme of sci-fi. Bergonomic is just, I guess it's the theme of like rhyming. Awesome. So it's a bunch of different songs, a bunch of varieties, similar to like Replicable Skills or Rhyme Your Business or some of my other records. So there's a variety of like some songs about comics, some songs about, other things. And so I'm working on that. So I'm really, really excited to get that out. And then I've got another another album that's themed around comic books, and that's going to be coming out maybe by the end of next year. We'll see how that goes. And that's a concept album called Remember the Fan Base. And it's inspired by my kind of lifetime being a comics fan and working in the comic industry and like working at comic shops and just everything. And it's just it's a story, about a comic shop called The Fan Base, which, you're talking about canon. In The Last Paper Route, that's the comic store. It's called The Fan Base. Yeah. So this album's called Remember the Fan Base. And it was this great comic shop that everyone used to go to, in this canonical universe. Yeah. So I'm very excited about that one too. And I've got a new vinyl project that we're going to be launching shortly. hopefully end of November, early December, called the MacGuffin Device, which collects a bunch of singles that I put out between 2017 and 2019, and mostly a lot of tracks from Rhyme Your Business. So it's going to be about 12 songs on a vinyl, special vinyl release to tie in with a new video, talking about videos, for the MacGuffin Device. So I guess a lot going on. Like I'm just kind of like just at this moment in time, and I'm just got to focus on you know, the day-to-day little things, getting to make them all happen. So yeah, it's work.
No
but it's fun. It's all fun. But yeah, it's what's great about it is just juggling, because I'm working with so many different people, from illustrators to music producers, DJs, sound recording people, you know, dealing with the artists coming up with the concepts for the covers, to like the manufacturers and you know, distributors, and like, so it's, you know, I'm a one-man operation, but I'm working with this whole group of, you know, Avengers, and everyone's got their special skill. So it's a lot of fun, but like, yeah, just trying to organize it all is it takes a lot of time away from reading comics.
Yes, it does. That sounds like just a tremendous amount of work, and I'm glad you seem to have found a good way to balance it, because you seem relatively stress-free, which is amazing.
Well, you know, you just do what you love, right? And that's I'm just having fun. You know, I'm not complaining. I'm making music and comics, and I love it. And I get to work with insanely talented people, so it's great. You know, I'm just trying my best to make some good rhymes.
I love it. I did want to ask, because you mentioned the fifth issue for The Last Paper Route, which I genuinely am very excited for.
Oh, thanks.
So oddly, I picked these four up. I have all 4 issues of it so far from Sidekick Downtown. And,
beautiful.
Yeah,
love the Sidekick. Shout them out.
Yeah, Chris is the best. The whole shop is amazing. Folks out there, if you haven't yet, do go to the Sidekick Comics in Leslieville, and just enjoy a good cup of coffee, pick up some sick comics, and then be astounded when you watch either my interview with Chris, because it was in the shop, or when you check out Living Between Wednesdays from Wordburglar, because his shop, or his music video, was shot there. And when I went through them, and I quite liked them, and just being me and going, okay, I like this comic a lot, maybe I'll talk to one of the creators, I started doing a little bit of digging, and that's somehow you as Wordburglar did not click. So I read that, I enjoyed that, and I was like, this is a cool book. And then I came into your music from seeing Sidekick. So to get it to marry together now, I was like, oh, this is the guy. He made the thing.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. How did you, like, what came first? Did you want to, it sounds like you wanted to rap first, but how did you come up with the idea or the drive to make The Last Paper Route?
Well, it's funny because I read comics before I'd ever heard rap music. So I read comics very early on, right? So probably like, I don't know how old I was, 4 or 5, 6.
Really?
And I probably started hearing rap around 6 or 7 years old. I don't know, like who can...
Yeah, long time.
Who knows? But and even with rap, it's like I just always loved doing it. I never thought I'm gonna be like a rap star. And I'm not that I'm a rap star, but you know, I never like had that. Like I was just like, it'd be cool. Like I just love rapping, and I've just never stopped doing it. I've like just taught myself how to do it, and just kind of fumbled through, and would kind of just like do it by myself in my bedroom, and then I'd have like this recording set up, and like my friends would come over, and we'd all cram into my room and just like make bad freestyle raps and stuff. And like I didn't know what I was doing, and I still don't. But with comics too, like I would just draw my own comics, and my friend Alex, he loved comics, and we became best friends because of our mutual love of comics and many other reasons. But like we were both like into making comics, so we would sit in the back of classes at school and just draw our own comics, and like we trade them with each other. Then we'd like have our own characters cross over with each other, just on like loose leaf and just writing in the backs of like binders and stuff. And we both were paper boys, and we would have these literal adventures on our paper route because our customers were wild, and we delivered downtown, and there's all these apartment buildings, and you're dealing with so many different people, and you're just a kid. And so we would like be delivering, and he delivered to like a senior's residence, and that was like a whole other set of things. And he would go, we go in there and deliver and deal with those customers. And, for the most part, it was great, but there'd be like some really strange things. Like there was a dead body. A person died in one of the apartment buildings, and they didn't find her for like weeks, and the building stunk. And I remember going in every day and like plugging my nose. Sorry, this is like graphic. I rap about it. It's in the song called The Root. And I remember like plugging my nose and running in and delivering the papers and not knowing what was going on. And it was in the middle of the summer, and it was stinking like every day. And it was like a week going on. And then finally I showed up to deliver my papers one day, and the coroner was there, and they were wheeling out the dead body, and like people in the building had just been like, what is this smell? What is going on? And it's horrible to like, but that was, I was a kid, and that like, so there'd be all these crazy adventures and customers who were just ridiculous, people trying to like not pay you because you had to like knock on the door and get like cash, we weren't taking debit. Yada, yada, yada. We started making comics about that. So Alex and I would make comics about our adventures in paper routing. And we brought them to Strange Adventures. And we had these other comics that we made, and they probably weren't as good. And Callum, who is like he's the owner of Strange Adventures, and just like one of the greatest people you'll ever meet. And certainly in the comic industry, he's like the highest possible, superstar of comics. So shout out Cal Johnston, anyone who knows him. He's just the best, and you should try having him on your show. I mean, he's just incredible. Like I could go on and on and talk about how much I love Cal. And so Cal was working at the shop, and who gave me my first job working in comics. Is before I worked there. He saw our comics, and he was really encouraging. We were just like these kids sharing our comics, and he said, you know what, like these other comics that are just kind of like knockoff superhero comics that you guys are doing, like really bad versions of whatever, like Batman or Lobo or some Watchmen ripoffs. He's like, these, whatever. Like, you guys should do this paper routing comic, because this is like your true experience. And these comics are like clearly like coming from a place of like something that and you're like, they're your experiences, and they're just more fun. And anyways, he was super supportive. So Alex and I were like, wow. And so we just literally started trying to make it a comic series. Yeah. And he taught us how to make like zines and mini comics, and we'd photocopy them. And so we did this whole little series of comics when we were just kids, like junior high and high school. And, Alex and I went off and did other things. And we were always like, we got to come back to Adventures in Paper Routing one day. We got to like come back and like make it a comic. So we talked about it for years and years. And, I used to draw them, and Alex drew too. But neither of us had the chops to do a comic at the level that we wanted. But luckily our best friend Dave, who I'm going to shout out, Dave does The Makers.
Right on.
Great comic. Go check this out. Get it from Strange Adventures or your local comic shop. Hopefully the Sidekick has them. They should get it if they don't. Dave, after I bugged him and badgered him, he was like, all right, I'll do it, because he's the best. And so Dave illustrated it, and so the last paper route is basically like our next level version of Adventures in Paper Routing, but we've actually like crafted it out. We have this like, we've got a story, we've got characters, we know where we're going, we've got like some mysteries going on. And where our younger the comics we made when we were kids they're very like goofy and silly and fun. Like this, we grounded in a bit of reality, but it's also like a bit of that kind of strangeness. Like there is kind of a Goonies or Stranger Things, or, there's some things going on in the background. And the funny thing was, when we were planning to do it, this is how long ago it was.
Oh boy. Okay.
We were like, there's no other comics about paper routes. And Paper Girls had not come out. And then Brian K. Vaughan, who's like one of our favorite comic creators, announces he's doing Paper Girls. And we're like, for our entire life, there's been like next to no comics about paper routes that I knew about. I think there's maybe a Japanese one, but there was like very little stuff about paper routes in comics. And then BKV comes and does Paper Girls, which is great, but luckily, if you've read it, has nothing to really do with Paper Roots. They're like doing time travel, they're doing all this other stuff. So spoiler alert, Paper Girls, they're just paper girls who go on this weird time travel thing. And they don't really deal with their paper route. So the last paper route really is about a paper route. Basically, if you're hardcore into paper routing, we've got the comic for you. Forget BKV.
Yeah, Brian K. Vaughan, nah, not even. Paper Girls, they're lacking on the job.
Sorry, I got to figure out how to tell that story in like less than a minute. So those.
Not at all.
Hope that was okay for you.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? The more the merrier. I'm here to learn, to share some cool stories, and I love it.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day. Yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns. Can't find issue 2? Yeah. Collector problems, cliffhangers, mysteries. You need answers. When did Batman become Green Lantern? I get it. True believer, not lying. Always up for an awesome summer crossover.